During my mom's birthday, my nephew said, "Grandma says you're only invited since you pay for things." Then he smeared cake on my dress as everyone laughed. That night, I cut off the $1,200 rent payment forever. At Marlene's birthday, my nephew Caleb blurted out, "Grandma says you're only here because you're the one who pays for everything." And right after that he flung a slab of cake straight at my dress, and when it splattered across me, the whole family burst out laughing. Later that night, I went home and shut down the $12,200 transfer I'd been sending every month to cover their rent once and for all. Showing up to my mom's birthday was easily the worst choice I'd made in years, and that's saying something because I've made some truly terrible calls with my family, like co-signing a loan on a car Rick, my stepdad, stopped paying on after half a year, or footing my sister Jenna's rent when she bailed on her ex with barely a week's warning. But this moment somehow beat all of that. It had all kicked off 2 weeks earlier when Marlene rang me while I was buried in work. She didn't bother asking how I was doing. She never does. She just launched into this whole plan for a simple little get-together at home for her birthday. Her idea of simple, of course, meant I'd be the one covering the cake, the catering, the drinks, the decorations, and yes, the rent again. I told her I'd think about it, and she chirped back, "Perfect, I already told everyone you'd take care of it," then hung up. I should have said no right then. I honestly should have. But when you've spent your whole life being the steady one, the successful one, the one who doesn't yell or break down or throw drama around, you get used to swallowing your feelings and sending money like it's muscle memory. So I did what I always do. I ordered the exact custom red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting that she loves. I booked catering from that overpriced barbecue place she's obsessed with, paid for all the drinks, even rented folding chairs she swore she didn't need until she called 2 days before and insisted she absolutely did. And just when I thought the list was done, she dropped the rent bomb. $2,200. Just this month, sweetheart. I'm in a rough patch. It was always just this month. It never actually was. On the day of the party, I slid into a simple navy dress, pulled my hair back, and tried to look like I had myself together even though inside I felt like the family's personal ATM with legs. The whole drive over, my chest felt tight. Not from anxiety but from this slow-burning resentment that had been piling up for years without me even noticing. And the second my tires hit the driveway, I knew I'd made a mistake. Cars were everywhere, half parked on the grass. The music was way too loud. The backyard looked like someone tried to throw a kids' carnival in an abandoned lot. I could hear Marlene's voice ringing over the chaos, laughing loud enough for people across the street to hear. I spotted Jenna before she noticed me, floating around in some flowy white romper and platform sandals like she'd never heard of sticking to a budget. Her daughter Brooke stood beside her looking annoyed and bored at the same time, which had pretty much become her signature look lately. No one really greeted me. A couple of barely there nods. One cousin muttered a lazy hey. As I passed a cluster of lawn chairs, Rick was already rambling loudly about politics to a teenager who clearly wanted to melt into the earth. I found Marlene near the grill opening presents. She lit up when she saw me, but only because she clocked the gift bag in my hand. Inside was the tablet she'd been not so subtly hinting about for months. She tore into it right there, pretended to be surprised, then wandered off to show her friends how clever it was, acting like she stumbled on it at a thrift store instead of me spending hours researching the perfect one and paying full price. I sat down under a faded umbrella, just trying to breathe. 15 minutes in, no thank you, no acknowledgement beyond the gift, nothing. Just as I started to consider slipping out early, Brooke marched over holding a chunk of cake piled so high it looked like it might topple. She stared me dead in the eye and said, "Grandma says you're only invited because you pay for stuff." And then she threw it. The cake smacked right into the center of my chest, sliding down and sinking red frosting into the fabric. For a split second I just froze, and then the sound hit me, laughter. Hers first, then others joining in. When I glanced back, I saw Marlene actually laughing like it was adorable. Jenna didn't say a word, didn't scold Brooke, didn't even look at me. Rick lifted his beer like he was making a toast to the whole damn show. I walked inside without saying anything. The bathroom was cramped, smelling like old candles and stale mildew, but it was quiet and that was enough. I scrubbed at the frosting with paper towels and cold water, knowing the dress was finished. I sat on the edge of the tub and just breathed. I wasn't going to cry. I'd cried too many times over them already, but something inside me shifted like a switch that finally snapped. When I got home, I didn't text anyone, didn't yell, didn't try to guilt trip them. I just opened my banking app, scrolled to the transfers, and canceled the $12,200 payment. I stared at it for a moment, then blocked Marlene's number. The next morning she called 4 times. I ignored all of them. Later that week, the landlord reached out to her, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The first hint that things were about to spiral came only hours after I canceled the payment. Marlene texted me early in the morning like nothing had happened. "Morning, sweetheart. Can you double-check the rent? Think something glitched." She always played innocent like that, pretending everything was some harmless mistake instead of the usual pattern. By lunch she stopped pretending. "Why didn't the rent go through? This isn't funny. I already told the landlord." Then came the guilt trip. "You know I've been struggling. I raised you. I gave you everything. I needed you just this once. Just one time." That line actually made me laugh because if I printed my bank statements and highlighted every supposed one time over the past 6 years, the pages would glow neon. Every time was always the last time until it wasn't. Each time I caved in before I didn't answer her messages, not because I was trying to make some dramatic point, but because I was exhausted in that deep bone-level way you feel when it finally sinks in that someone isn't confused or overwhelmed at all, they just don't care. They expect, they take, and the second you stop supplying them, they act like you've committed a crime. The texts kept rolling in. "I can't believe you do this to me after everything I've done for you. You let your niece embarrass you and now you're taking it out on me." She still hadn't apologized about the cake. She still hadn't acknowledged that she stood there laughing while her granddaughter humiliated me in front of 20+ people. 2 days later, Jenna sent a message. Not even a full thought, just "So you're not doing the rent this month?" And that was it. Not one word about what happened. No "Hey, I'm sorry about Brooke." Just this cold, flat question like I was a payroll department that forgot to cut a check. I didn't respond. I left it sitting there unread, even though I'd definitely read it. On day 4, an unknown number popped up on my phone. Normally I don't answer those, but I'd been waiting for a call from my vet, so I picked up. It was Rick. He eased into the call like we were old friends catching up, talking about the weather, asking how I'd been, and then without a single pause he slid into the real reason he'd called. "Your mom's really torn up, Tammy. You've got her so stressed she's getting sick." I stayed silent. "You need to do right by her. She's your mother. She gave you life." That line, the tired, heavy, manipulative line, was the same one Marlene always used whenever she wanted me to ignore my limits and fall back into place. Like the simple act of giving birth to me nearly 35 years ago meant she held a lifetime pass to drain me emotionally. He kept talking, claiming she wasn't eating, that she'd been crying, that she was humiliated because she had to ask the landlord for an extension. As if any of that was my fault. "She doesn't deserve this," he said. And something inside me cracked in a way that felt suspiciously like clarity. I didn't laugh out loud, but mentally something in me finally snapped into place. It felt like realizing the deck had been stacked against me from the beginning, and I'd been playing fair this whole time for nothing. I hung up. No goodbye, no explanation. Just ended the call and blocked his number without a second thought. 2 hours later, Marlene showed up at my apartment. Since I live in a secure building, she must have followed someone in or waited by the entrance until someone opened the door. Through the peephole I saw her wrapped in a floral shawl, wearing this pitiful expression like she was some Victorian widow begging for mercy. She knocked for 15 straight minutes, switching between soft taps and furious pounding. At one point she shouted my name. I didn't open the door. I didn't even shift my weight. I just stood there, completely silent, listening to her demand her way back into a life she'd never treated with respect. Eventually she left. I thought maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it finally stops. But then she took the whole thing public. A friend sent me a screenshot from a local Facebook group, and there was my mother posting a tragic little story about being abandoned by a close family member she trusted, saying she was facing eviction after a terrible betrayal. She didn't mention my name, but she didn't have to. Anyone who knew us knew exactly who she meant. The comments were full of sympathy. One woman said she'd pray for her. Another asked, "Is this the daughter who works in tech?" And that's when it sank in just how far Marlene was willing to go. She didn't care about privacy. She didn't care about consequences. She didn't care who she dragged through the mud. She just wanted to win. I didn't respond to the thread. I didn't expose anything or drop screenshots. I just watched it unfold and quietly removed anyone who forwarded it to me. Let her build her little fantasy world. But the silence didn't last long. About a week after the party, my phone rang. It was Jenna. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me said to answer. She didn't sound mad, she sounded worn out. She said that Brooke had been asking why I wasn't visiting anymore, why I didn't call, why everything suddenly felt different. Then Jenna said the one thing I didn't expect. Mom told her you don't love us anymore. That hit harder than I wanted it to. She kept talking, saying things at home were awful, that Marlene was unbearable and Rick was even worse. She said she couldn't take it anymore. I need to get out, she said. I'm trying, I swear, but I don't have the money. I stayed quiet for a long time. Then she added, I told Brooke what happened at the party. I told her it was wrong. I should have stopped her. I should have defended you. That wasn't okay. And for the first time in years, I heard real guilt in her voice. Not excuses or blame shifting, but actual remorse. Then came the question I knew was coming. Can you help me? Just for a little bit until I can get things sorted. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I remembered exactly what it felt like living under that roof. Maybe I believed her. Maybe I wanted to believe her. I paid the deposit on a small apartment for her, covered groceries, and told her I'd help for 1 month. 1 month only. She promised she'd explain everything to Brooke, said things would be different now, that she finally saw Marlene for who she really was. And for a moment I let myself trust that. I didn't know yet that everything was about to unravel again. For a few weeks things were calm, almost suspiciously calm. Jenna moved into a modest 2-bedroom on the east side. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. When I helped carry boxes inside, she looked lighter, like she could finally breathe. Brooke seemed quieter than usual, shy around me but polite. I didn't push her. I figured earning her trust again would take time after what happened at the party. Jenna called every few days to give me little updates, how she'd found a cheaper supermarket, how Brooke had started drawing again. She kept thanking me until I finally told her to stop. I wasn't doing any of this for praise. I just wanted her to break the cycle, to actually have a chance at a regular life without Marlene's chaos poisoning every conversation. For the first time in years, I actually felt a flicker of hope about my family. Then around the 3-week mark, Marlene somehow found out what I'd been doing for Jenna. I still don't know how. Maybe my sister slipped up or maybe Mom saw something online. But she called me out of nowhere with that syrupy, fake sweet voice she saves for moments when she's about to pull something. I'm just so proud of you for helping your sister, she cooed. You've always had such a generous heart. I asked her how she even knew about any of it. And instead of answering, she laughed and started talking about how she was thinking of stopping by Jenna's new place to check in on the girls. That one sentence made my stomach twist. The last thing Jenna needed was Mom waltzing in and pretending to be the picture-perfect parent. I told her not to go. She acted like I hadn't said a thing. A few days later, Jenna called, and I could hear immediately that something was wrong. She came, she said. She just showed up. Walked right in like she owned the place, started rummaging through my fridge, asking who paid for what. Brooke was standing right there. I wanted to sink through the floor. Then she told me Mom had gone on some long guilt trip in front of Brooke, saying I owed her, that the only reason Jenna had that apartment was because I had finally decided to behave, and then she'd accused Jenna of turning me against her. Jenna said she made her leave after 20 minutes. I couldn't tell if I was supposed to feel proud or furious. A couple of days later, I noticed a $2,000 charge on my credit card from a shop right near Mom's place. The first thing I thought was fraud, but then I saw the name on the transaction. Rita's Appliances. Marlene's full name is Redita. She'd used my card. I called her immediately. She didn't pick up. When she finally texted back, all she wrote was, "Thank you, honey. You're such a blessing. I'll pay you back next month. Love you." I stared at that message for a solid minute before it sank in that she wasn't even pretending anymore. She was flaunting it. I called again. This time she answered, sounding totally relaxed, like none of this was surprising. I asked her straight out if she used my card. She laughed under her breath and said, "Oh, quit being dramatic. I figured you meant it as a way to help. Jenna said you're doing well. You won't even miss it." And something in me finally broke. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten anything. I just grabbed my keys and drove to her house without even bothering to put on shoes. When I walked in, she was sitting there with the TV blaring, a new microwave and coffee maker still in their boxes beside her. She glanced up and actually smiled. "Oh, Tammy, don't overreact." I went right up to her and said, "You stole from me." She waved a hand and said, "You always make things bigger than they are. I raised you. I have the right to ask for help." "Help is when I offer it," I said. "Not when you take it." Then I noticed the receipt sitting on the counter. She'd bought a flat-screen TV too. That was the final spark. Every bit of anger I'd swallowed for years came to the surface, bright and sharp. I don't remember every word I said next. Just the sound of my own voice, louder and stronger than I'd ever heard it. I remember her eyes going wide, her face tightening, the sudden panic when it hit her that I wasn't folding this time. I told her she was done. No more money. No more calls. No more guilt. She could go beg someone else. She called me ungrateful. Told me I was cursed to end up alone. I didn't reply. I just turned around, walked out the door, and left her sitting there surrounded by all the shiny things she bought with my money. When I got home, I texted Jenna. "Mom used my card. I'm cutting her off permanently." Jenna texted back immediately. "She did what?" "Then I'll handle it." I didn't know what she meant yet, but I knew it wasn't going to be peaceful. The moment I saw the next charge on my phone, I knew exactly what Mom had done. It was only $1,142 this time from a gas station near her house, but the amount didn't matter. What mattered was she did it again. Used a card she should never have had access to. I'd already removed it from every shared account, locked it down tight, and filed a fraud report for the $2,000 she charged before. I still don't know how she got it again. Maybe she'd written the numbers down somewhere, or maybe she guessed the new ones, but the fact that she even tried made something crystal clear. She didn't just take, she intended to take. This wasn't desperation. This was entitlement. I reported the charge, canceled the card entirely, and had the bank issue another, this time under a different account. Then I called Jenna. She didn't sound shocked at all. "She's been telling people you're helping her again," she said, "that you forgave her. She's telling folks you left her your card for emergencies." I was so furious I couldn't talk for a moment. This wasn't manipulation anymore. It was fraud, and she wasn't even hiding it. That night, I drove to her house again, not to negotiate or reason or explain. I just wanted it finished. When I walked in, the porch light was on, the boxes from her little shopping spree still sitting in the living room. She was at the kitchen table scrolling on her phone with a Diet Coke like her world was perfectly in order. The moment she looked up, she smiled. "Oh, Tammy, before you say anything." I didn't let her finish. I walked straight to her, took the phone out of her hand and opened her messages. Right there, in plain sight, were screenshots she'd sent to one of our aunts. She was bragging about how she'd gotten back in, how I'd learned my lesson. One of the messages literally said, "You have to let them throw their tantrum. Then wait. They always crawl back." She saw me reading it. She reached for her phone. I stepped away. Then she said something so smug, so brazen it almost didn't sound real. "I thought you'd be proud. You always wanted me to learn to take care of things myself." Something inside me snapped again, but this time it was quiet and absolute. I walked up to her, grabbed the armrest of the chair she was in, and pulled just hard enough that she stumbled to her feet. She shot up angry, screaming that I was insane, ungrateful, abusive. I reached out and grabbed her by the hair. Not hard, just enough to snap her attention toward me. Enough to make it absolutely clear I wasn't playing anymore. She shrieked, jerked away, shoved me, and I shoved her right back. She hit the counter and her phone clattered to the floor. It was the first time in my entire life I had ever laid a hand on her, and while I'm not proud of it, I can't say I regret it either. She stood there frozen, one hand gripping the counter, the other touching her hair like she couldn't believe I actually dared to touch her. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just said, "You're done. Out of my life. Out of my accounts. Out of my future." And then, steady as anything, I told her what I'd already put in motion. I'd spoken to her landlord. I told him I wouldn't be covering anything ever again, that she'd been using my name without permission. He'd been surprisingly calm about it. Apparently, I wasn't the first relative she'd thrown under the bus. She had 10 days to move out. She didn't say one word. Just stared at me like I'd rewritten the script she'd memorized and she didn't know her next line. I walked out, leaving the door wide open behind me. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Then one morning somebody buzzed my apartment. When I opened the door, I found Jenna standing there holding an envelope and a duffel bag. Behind her was Brooke, and behind Brooke, my mother. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk with a suitcase, sunglasses on, no makeup, and wrapped in that same ridiculous floral shawl she used whenever she wanted to look delicate and helpless. I looked at Jenna. She handed me the envelope. She sold the TV, the microwave, the dumb blender she bought with your card. This is what's left. Inside was cash, wrinkled, messy bills. Later I counted it. $478. Not even close to what she owed, but more than I ever expected to see again. Then Jenna said something I didn't see coming. I told her to say goodbye. I blinked, unsure what she meant. She turned toward our mom with her arms crossed. Go on. Say it. My mom stepped forward a bit. I'm going to Ohio, she said, staying with Aunt Cheryl. When I didn't reply, she added, I guess I pushed too hard. Still no response from me. I just looked at Brooke. She was holding a plastic folder stuffed with her school papers, and on the front was a drawing, me, her, and Jenna all smiling. No grandma anywhere. Then, without anyone prompting her, Brooke walked right up and hugged me around the waist. I'm sorry about the cake, she said softly. I didn't know. I just thought it would make Grandma laugh. I knelt down and told her I forgave her, that none of it had ever been her fault. She nodded and said, Mom explained everything. She said we don't have to laugh when someone gets hurt just because someone tells us to. And in that moment something inside me clicked. For years I thought I was losing a family, but the truth was I was finally gaining a real one. A smaller one, sure, but honest. I stood in the doorway watching Jenna and Brooke walk Mom toward her rideshare. She didn't look back. Not even once. And for the first time in my whole life, I didn't care whether she ever did. Around 2 weeks after she left for Ohio, I got a voicemail. No warning, no missed calls before it. Just one short, tight message sitting in my inbox. It was her voice. And for once there was no fake sweetness, no theatrics, no sighs meant to earn pity. I'm in Ohio. Cheryl's place is small. She's not like you. She makes me wash my own clothes. I've been sleeping on the pullout. Just wanted you to know I'm okay. That's all. She sounded like someone who'd finally brushed up against consequences for the first time in her life. I didn't call back. I forwarded the voicemail to Jenna, then deleted it without even saving the audio. And for the first time in my entire adulthood, the world went quiet. No surprise charges. No guilt-tripping texts. No vague social media posts about betrayal or abandonment. The silence felt eerie at first, like the eye of a storm making room for the next wave. But this time nothing came back around. Meanwhile, Jenna started getting the hang of her job, part-time office work at a dental clinic. Not glamorous but solid. And it was only 5 blocks from Brooke's school, so most mornings she walked there with a coffee she made herself. Not Starbucks. Not something she begged me to cover. A cup she earned. That alone made my throat tighten. One Thursday night she texted, got my first full paycheck. Paid rent without asking for help. Feels weird. Good. Weird. I wrote back, I'm proud of you, really. She replied with a single crying emoji. She used some of that paycheck to buy Brooke proper notebooks, not the flimsy dollar store ones. Brooke was thrilled. That hit me harder than I expected. It reminded me of the notebooks we grew up with. Covers peeling by October, pages thin as tissue. A few days later, Jenna invited me to dinner. Brooke made spaghetti and insisted on setting the table herself. She even folded the napkins into little triangles like she'd seen in a restaurant once. Halfway through the meal, Brooke got up, rummaged in her backpack and handed me a piece of paper. It was a school drawing. 3 people holding hands with tiny hearts floating over us. Me, Jenna, and Brooke. I smiled and told her it was beautiful. She said, that's us now. I told my teacher we're a triangle family because triangles are strong. Jenna teared up quietly. She didn't say anything for a minute. And then she spoke. You know what Mom used to tell me when I cried? She asked. She'd say, tears don't fix rent. I nodded. I'd heard that same line more times than I cared to remember. She was wrong, Jenna said. Tears don't fix rent. But sometimes they fix people. I had to cry a lot before I realized how broken I was. She fiddled with her fork, then added softly, I used to think if I made her proud, she'd love me. That maybe I wasn't doing enough. That maybe you were her favorite and I had to be louder or funnier or neater, whatever it took. The silence afterward settled heavy but necessary. Then she looked at me with this clarity I'd never seen in her before. "I'm sorry I ever made you feel like the enemy. You weren't. You were just the only one strong enough to tell her no." I didn't cry, but something lodged in my throat and stayed there for the rest of the night. 3 days later came the shock that knocked the wind out of me. Marlene showed up without warning. No call, no heads up. Just standing outside my apartment with a rolling suitcase and a grocery bag full of random pills, crumpled receipts and half-eaten snacks. I only realized she was there because she rang every apartment in the building until somebody buzzed her in. When I opened my door, she didn't force a smile or break down crying. She just muttered, "Cheryl's kicking me out. Says I'm too much work. Says I drain people." Then she tried to slip past me into my place. I blocked the entrance with my whole body. "I'm not here to beg," she said. "I just need to talk. Just let me say something." I kept quiet. She said, "I thought you'd be proud of me for trying. No matter what I do, you all look at me like I'm some monster." Still, I didn't respond. Then she reached for the line she always believed could crack me open. The same one she used back when I was a teenager trying to grow a spine. "You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for me. You wouldn't even exist." That was the final spark. I stepped into the hallway, shut my apartment door behind me, and walked her right back down, her suitcase thumping behind us as she mumbled to herself. When we reached the building's entrance, I gave her the same envelope she'd left behind last time. Never opened, never touched. Inside was the $478 she said was repayment. She stared at it, then glared at me like I was lower than dirt. After everything I did, she started, and I cut her off. "You used me," I said, "used my guilt, my patience, my silence. And now you get nothing. Not my time. Not my door. Not my pity." She didn't argue. She just stood there while the automatic glass door eased shut between us like a scene in a movie where the villain doesn't die, just fades into irrelevance. I went back upstairs, locked my door, and finally exhaled a breath that had been trapped in me for 20 years. Later that night, Jenna sent me a picture. Brooke holding a handmade card she'd colored with markers. It said, "Thank you for helping my mom be a real mom," with a drawing underneath of me and Jenna on a couch holding mugs while Brooke sat on the floor with a book. No Marlene. No chaos. Just peace. It's been 5 months since the day my mother stood outside my building with a suitcase and a bag of junk hoping to squeeze her way back in. And 5 months since I chose to say no for good. People like to say going no contact with a parent feels like grieving, and maybe that's true in some ways, but for me it didn't feel like I'd lost her. It felt like I finally stopped losing myself. She'd spent years chipping away at who I was, what I wanted, and what I thought I deserved. Cutting her off wasn't grief. It was recovery. What surprised me wasn't the freedom. It was how fast the calm settled in. No more weird charges on my card. No more emotional traps disguised as love. No more sudden demands I was supposed to meet without blinking. The only messages I got from family came from Jenna, and even those were different now. They weren't requests or emergencies. She sent pictures of Brooke's school projects or links to terrible reality shows she knew I'd roast with her. One night she even sent a blurry video of Brooke dancing around in pajamas to some 80s song she definitely didn't understand. The change showed in Jenna's voice too. Less defensive, more grounded. She didn't ask permission to be proud of small things anymore. She just let herself be. She was still at the dental office, and her manager was training her for more hours. She'd started using words like schedule and stability and savings account, and I think she meant all three. Brooke adjusted faster than either of us expected. One Saturday morning she called me, her not Jenna, and asked if I wanted to go to the park. When I got there, she ran up and handed me a small plastic bracelet she'd made. Bright pink beads spelling Tammy with a little heart at the end. When I asked what the heart was for, she shrugged and said, "Because you're kind of my other mom now, not a step one, a bonus one like dessert." Something shifted in me right then. Not tears, but a widening inside my chest I didn't know I had room for. That night we had dinner at Jenna's place. Nothing fancy, just baked chicken, frozen peas, and the boxed mac and cheese Brooke begged for. We joked about how bad it tasted and then ate every bite anyway. After Brooke went to bed, Jenna and I sat on the living room floor with mugs of tea while the TV played quietly in the background. Out of nowhere, she said, "I haven't heard from her since she left town." I didn't have to ask who she meant. "She's been calling Cheryl," she added, "leaving voicemails. Cheryl won't answer." I think Mom finally figured out there's no one left. That surprised me, not that she was alone but that she actually understood she was. I always assumed she'd just move on to the next person to drain, but maybe she finally ran out of targets. Then Jenna asked, "Do you think she gets it now? Do you think she sees what she did?" I thought about it and shook my head. She probably thinks she just pushed the wrong buttons, not that the buttons were never hers to push. Jenna nodded slowly, then said, "I think part of me still wanted her to call and say sorry. Just once. But I don't need it anymore the way I used to." And that was the real turning point. Not a blowout argument or a dramatic goodbye. Just two grown women sitting on a floor realizing they didn't owe anyone the burden of being daughters to someone who never acted like a mother. A week later, Brooke's school held a family night, crafts, snacks, music, the usual chaos. Kids were told to bring anyone they considered family. When we walked in together, Brooke introduced me to her teacher as my mom's sister and my bonus grown-up. We made bookmarks out of construction paper, spilled juice on our shoes, and listened to a shaky rendition of You Are My Sunshine that was so off-key it became perfect. Afterward, Jenna gave me a folded sheet of notebook paper. "Brooke made you this," she said. Inside was a drawing. Not crayon this time, but pencil and colored pens. The three of us were in it again, only with more detail. Jenna with glasses, me with curly hair, Brooke holding both our hands. Above us, in neat, nervous cursive, she'd written, "We are our own kind of family." I taped it inside my kitchen cabinet. It's still there. I see it every morning when I reach for my coffee mug. And every morning it reminds me that you don't always get the family you start with. Sometimes you build one yourself, piece by painful piece, and somehow it ends up stronger, quieter, and truer than anything you left behind. And for the first time, it genuinely feels like home.